All right, thanks everyone for joining us today. Before we get started with the webinar, just a little bit of housekeeping. My name is Matt on behalf of Mantralogix. I am I'll be moderating the chat, and any questions you have, please put those in the chat, and we will answer those at the end of the webinar. Also, just to let you know, I'll repeat this at the end, but if you do have any questions, you can always reach out to Jane Siegler with account manager at Mantralogix. Her number is 866-320-8922, extension 247, and I will put that in the chat after we get kicked off here. So, but without further ado, I'd like to please welcome Vincent Pate, the product expert at Sage, and he's going to lead us through the journey today of the Sage Paperless module, which I think you'll find is very beneficial. And again, we will take all questions at the end. So just going to kick it on over to Vincent. Vincent?
Thank you very much. So hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about Sage Paperless Construction, and this is our, basically it's our system that's going to be able to handle all of your needs in terms of, going green and paperless within your Sage environments. So the idea within this, and my transitions just keep moving along here before without my notice, that's fine. But we could store in all of our different documents in the system in Sage Paperless Construction, regardless of if it's an accounts payable document, if it's human resources, if it's project management, and I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that. But we can store in all of your different documentation in the system through this. So Paperless Construction is designed into kind of two halves. We have the accounts payable, where you're going to be able to come in and store in all of your different routing and approval information for your AP-related documents and store those and get them out. And we also have the ability to just do everything in your system. We can store in your all of your payroll-related documents for your employees, your project management documents for your project managers, your property management people. Everyone and everything in the office can go completely digital and transmit those out to all the people that need it. Now, I won't spend too much time in slideshows, partly because I'm having a lot of issues with them, but two, because people want to see the software, and I want to make sure that you can see exactly what it is that we're talking about today. So what I've got up here is Sage Paperless Construction. This is kind of our dashboard screen. It's the initial screen you're going to see when you log in, and especially if you happen to be an admin or a project manager, you're going to see some quick information about things that you need to get out there for approval for your job or for a vendor that you're working on, what document types you got. But this is a module that works in the Sage environment, and to be clear, if you're a Sage 100 contractor user or Sage 300 CRE user, it works for both. And in fact, it's an identical look and feel to the software. So just note that as you're looking at this, no matter what accounting background office software you're using, we're going to be able to cover you on there. The idea being, within this system, you can start digitally storing everything that you guys need to have access. Those can be scanned in, they can be emailed to you and clicked and dragged in through an email, or they could just simply be something that you have on your computer and you point to it and you grab a whole batch and you bring those documents in. But we want to make sure we give you a location to store everything in here quickly and easily. As everything pops in here, we could pull in and say, here is all of our queues to store things. Now, because we're going paperless, there's going to be a lot of parallels to real life that I'm going to talk about here. This is our, basically the replacement for that little bucket, plastic bucket that you have on your office desk where people drop files on and say, hey, I need you to file this away. We could do that digitally now. So the idea, all the stuff that you get just goes into a little queue that's digital now as opposed to being a physical piece of paper. And we store it, and you as a person who would normally have to file that in can now start putting in those documents into the system however it makes sense for you. So dropping down the list, I've got a bunch of different types of documents. I've got, direct deposit statements. I've got, looks like an application for payment. I've got documents here, more documents. I can, sort them and rotate them as necessary too, because of course, want to be able to look at things the appropriate way. all these documents are stored in the system, ready to go now, but they're not coded yet. And part of the thing we want to do is make sure that we're going to be able to get these documents out and pull them up in your Sage back office when you need them. So we index them. This is the filing away of a document. And it sounds kind of boring, but it's not. And the reason why it's not is this is where you can really track and say, how do I want to find this document later? What's the point of filing a document away if you can't find it quickly and easily later? And that's the whole point we have with this software, is we're able to take these, direct deposit earnings statement, maybe I'll call this direct deposit authorization, or it's a PR check. Actually, I haven't created a direct deposit statement in my system here, but all the different ways we want to store a file will be in here, and I can basically say this is tied to an employee. And I'll do a little lookup here, and all of our lookups are live with our Sage database, whether, again, you're 100 or 300. You pick the appropriate person, and because that information's tied into the Sage database you're already using, it just fills it in for you. You don't have to worry about looking up every single value, typing it in, making sure it's all correct. It's all just put in there, and I can just save it in, and now I've got this direct deposit statement, saved into the system to be retrieved later. Now my next one is a purchase order I have to tie in here. I can easily come over here, say that's a AP purchase order, and I got that direct link to look up at all my commitments in here, pick the appropriate purchase order that this is for. It codes in all the values for me, and I hit index. This is important because each of these are now ways we can find this document later. It's not like it's a piece of paper going into a filing cabinet where you have a single drawer, and in that drawer is a folder, and you put that paper in there. Well, if you wanted to search for that by job, it's not like you have a filing cabinet for your job, or if you do, it's cut in a certain way, and if it goes to multiple jobs, what do you do there? This handles putting in your document in one time, and it stores it in every way you want to search for it later. It's important because the next step is, as we're saving these documents, your drawing logs, your submittal items, your purchase orders, your subcontracts, your certificates of insurance, and everything of those natures, we want to get them out. And so we have search utilities to make sure you're getting this stuff out of the system. It's being able to pull in and say, show me all my AP documents that we have in here. Great. But let's actually say, let's show me all my AP documents for a particular job that we're working on. I may be working the Clackamas Office Park, and I need to find those documents, so here they are. And I can hover over them and show some values, or I can say, my project manager is asking for all these. I'm going to highlight them, I'm going to email them to them, and send them on their way. Everything's stored, everything's sent over, and going to the right person. And as you have those people logging into the system who have very specific searches they do all the time, well, they have a browser view. So as my project manager for job 0301 can pop in and just say, show me everything for that job, and I can sort it by the day it was saved in the system or however I want, or pull in and say, show me everything in the last 30 days. I always want to know what's in the last 30 days that's been invoiced. It's an ever-changing list because we're not doing it off a specific date, but more of a range. And I also, of course, want to see all the drawings. I mean, this is stuff that we're storing in my architectural drawings. I want to be able to pull those out and see them accessible on the screen. And here they are. And even do markups on them if I wanted to, redact some pieces, or say I'm going to highlight this section here. Maybe we want to change that and make some transparency go much less so I can see it easier. But you can mark these up, use all the tools to put stamps, approvals, your own custom signatures. We want to make sure that these become your tools to access for all of your different documents going paperless. Now, an important piece to note about this is I'm not just searching for documents and finding them through the Sage Paperless module. I can do this right out of Sage 100 or Sage 300. In fact, I'm going to launch an information assistant here in Sage 300 CRE, as I can touch a bunch of different places all throughout here. If I'm doing a search, let's say I'm job cost and I'm looking at some cost spreadsheet that I've got sitting out here, and say job 0301, I'm the project manager, and I'm looking at all these different information, and I come down to my electrical sub and I say, that number doesn't look right to me. I'd like to see the numbers that make up that, or I'd like to see the documents that make that all into the system. we put within the paperclip icon throughout the entire software suite, again, 100 or 300, on all the different places that would have a logical lookup for the related documents that you're storing within, your system here. So cost code lookup for this, double click on it, it's going to launch Paperless and show me every document that had that cost code and that job on it, which I, in fact, have 3 AP invoices that are all stored in the system for that particular piece. And now these 3 invoices could also be looked up a variety of other ways. If I wanted to look at the index values of this, I can click and see right here on my other monitor. I could search by the vendor and find this, or I can find this by the date or the invoice amount, the due date. It's got multiple jobs, multiple job cost phases that could look for it by GL account. I'm not limited to how I want to find these. We just want to make this as simple as possible for you to get these documents that have all been stored in the system. So pulling up right from here, being able to see the cost code through the inquiry there, or if you're on the AP side of things, maybe you're looking at an invoice register and you're looking at a vendor's invoice and you want to see those related documents, it's a couple clicks away. You just pull up the attachment and right from Sage 300 or for 100, you'll get the invoice, you'll get the check, you'll get those lien waivers that go along with it, and everything else that's been coded into the system that is stored in for available. This can also be helpful for your employees who want to say, hey, I want to do a quick search and find out all my direct deposits that you've been storing in the system for me. Please, show me those to me. I can have that happen as well. And all of these documents that we're storing, they're not just stuff that you can put in and have retrieved. We can actually route them around for approval or for people to look at as well. So if I'm storing in those documents and I want to say, hey, my purchase orders have a approval that we want to go through when we store the document in the system. We have this thing called doc route, which will take any document that you're storing in, regardless of the origin. You set this up; it's all customizable, and you'd say, "Hey, I want to route this." When a PO comes in, it routes to, in this case, a guy Jim, and then he's already released it. He's approved it on his end, and now it's over to me. You can set these routing rules up for any type of document. Although we will be talking about the AP side of things here very shortly to get you that, super expanded piece. But I can even have my POs or my vacation request forms, or I can have my employees every time I put in direct deposit, just sends it over to them so they have a little queue of places that they can have access to, and they can approve the document, they can modify the index values if security permitting, and do everything they need to make sure that things are being addressed and taken care of. Now, before I jump into the AP side of things, I just want to let you know we have a series of apps that are coming out very shortly down the line. In fact, that's where that PowerPoint was kind of going in that case. I'm just going to go ahead and pull it up in a more pedestrian manner up onto my screen so I don't have those transitions running here. But we are going to be coming up with some apps being released by the end of the year where we're going to be able to take all those documents that we've been talking about and make it so much easier to get them in and out of the system. Because Sage Paperless lives on your server and it stores all those documents in there for you to have access to, you're going to want to be able to get them out or captured in different ways and to get them to the people quicker than just having them come walk into the office and access it. So we've added, the new apps are coming to give you capture, where we can, on a tablet or smartphone, take a picture of those invoices, purchase orders, signed purchase orders, credit card receipts, whatever, job photos, things that we want to capture and have it automatically taken from that app and put into the paperless system for people to have access. We also, these will be stored into the system so that you can then search for them later and retrieved as well. We also will be adding, and the ability to distribute this documents through the apps as well. So this is going to be one of those things we're going to add to allow you to do remote approvals for invoices and for all the other documents that we have that we just showed in there as well. So do note that we have a lot of apps coming right out down the line to appropriately let you capture documents and route them around for people for approval through apps, or of course back to the office, for your accounting folks as well. Now let's talk about the AP side of things. So we talked there about the, we could store in all these documents, and all these documents are being stored in for all the different people to have access to. Well, a lot of these documents are AP related, and those have a lot of other meanings for your accounts payable and your project managers and everyone like that. So what we do is we have what we call the AP flow piece of Sage Paperless Construction that allows you to scan in all of your different AP invoices and all the related documents, which we just talked about. And these documents are all scanned in and allow you to start setting up routing rules, and when things are entered in, where do they go, who do they go to, did they approve it, did they reject it? We're going to track it all. Well, it all starts with, of course, entering it in the system. So if you happen to be a 100 or 300 user, again, it works with both systems, nothing separate between the two. But note that the information that's all tied within this screen here, this is going to be replacing your AP entry that you normally would do in the Sage accounting system into here. But it gives you all the same checks and balances. It gives you all the subcontractor compliance and over budget warnings and everything you would expect to have in an AP module, because it is an extension of that module that we have in the Sage environment already. Come in here, pull up a live list of all my vendors, code out the, let's say it's going to Jackson Heating and AC. It's invoice number 201 P2, and we'll just go ahead and say it was invoice date 23, put in, maybe as a discount date of the 30th, and the invoice total 22,700. And we start setting up all the lines of distribution like you would any other invoice. Now, if this happens to be a purchase based off a purchase order, I can pull it up and I'll get of course, I picked a vendor that doesn't have a PO. Let me go grab let me change it to vendor 100 instead. Now, and it tells me the couple of quick things there you just saw me click through. Told me the invoice number already exists, so we do have checks and balances to make sure those invoices that are in the system never get duplicated. We're looking to see if, you've already saved this one in there, please stop. And two, you also saw a warning, which will pop up a little bit later here again as well. Warning telling me that my have some general liability insurance that has expired, and I should take action upon that. We'll pop back to some of those warnings here in a minute, but the idea I brought up vendor 100, which I know I have purchase orders for. We have this link back in, pull up those POs that are in the system, grab the PO, telling me there's some more out of compliance stuff here, no signed contract, and the contract actually hasn't even been issued yet. So in a real life scenario, I'm going to hit cancel here and get that stuff taken care of. In a demo sense, I'm just going to continue on, select the items that I want to create, and add those to my invoice to create the PO or the subcontract real quickly and send it on its way. Might make this another line, go to a job or a piece of equipment as well. And if you happen to be a property management user, you can set it to a property. I'm going to do it to a job. In fact, I'm going to do this to two jobs. I'm going to say that this invoice is going to Northwest Food Warehouse for $20,000, or let's just say let's just cut that down. We'll say $12.70 to there, no tax. Any other piece that maybe I don't know the cost code and category, that's going to be taken care of by the project manager. And then I'm also going to say copy that line, put the second one here to 10. Oops, didn't mean to make that negative. Second one here to a different job, code that in, make sure that job doesn't have a default here. So let me just add that right there. And as you code it out, do all your lines of distribution, you hit route when you're all done, and this picks up the routing rules that are in the system that will automatically send it over to the right people to approve this document. First thing you'll notice here, I got some notes that are only saying that I waived some compliance about general liability insurance. As I said, demo data, I'm okay with that, but for you, you might want to stop that and take care of it. But here's where it's sending off my people. Now, notice I've got a couple sequences. The way this works is you can have up to 100 different levels of approval. I know no one's ever going to hit that amount, but we wanted to give you the option in case you ever did. This is going to 2 levels. Level 1, first people to get this, Dustin and Jim are each going to get their lines of the invoice that were for their job. They're the project managers. Dustin's going to get line 2. Jim's going to get line 1, and they're both going to approve their lines. And when they both approve it, it's going to then send both of those over to me, because I have a secondary rule that says if it's over $10,000, it goes back to me for approval on my side, or whoever that person in your company would be. We can set routing rules based on vendor, based on those things I just said, property, cost code, general ledger account. I mean, whatever you want to do, we can set it up, and it will route to all the appropriate people, and we can track who we're waiting on, how long has it been sitting in their bucket, are we going to miss out on due dates and things like that through the system. A route brings up my next invoice. As I pointed out, it's going to show me some out of compliance. It's automatically trying to go to my next vendor. I can continue, cancel, and if I was going over committed or over budget, I can get those warnings as well. But everything's tracked out, and I can get those invoices just right down the list and out to the right people. Now, before I jump in, change hats from the person who's entering these invoices, I also want to give you another option as well. Many people have credit cards, company credit cards, and you don't necessarily want to spend all the time entering invoice after invoice after invoice for those credit cards. So we do also give you a tool to be able to come in and pull in that credit card file from the bank. You can request a file from the bank, and you can say, here it is, highlight the, maybe the whole of the lines, pick the particular vendor, could be the bank, let's say Wells Fargo, and from here, take this and turn this all into an invoice. So right from the import from the bank, you can turn it into an invoice and send it off and do the routing and approval from there. I'm changing hats here. Let's talk about your approvers and what they are going to work with on the system. Now, your approvers are going to be notified that they have documents sitting out by a variety of different methods. The most common one is we set up a scheduler that runs, maybe once a day, maybe twice a day, depending on, how many documents you guys got running through the system and how long they log in. And it'll just send them an email and say, hey, you've got 5 documents sitting out there. Please log in to Paperless and do your approval. That's one method that's probably the most common. But we also have what we call alerts, where you can do far more than what I'm talking here with alerts. It's really a system that says if certain things happen, notify certain people. Let's make that more specific and say, hey, when I have a document that is for a particular job that's of high importance, or a particular vendor that's of high importance, send it, or I can just say an invoice in general, if you happen to have project managers that don't do a whole lot of the approval and so they want to be notified, you can have it just on an alert basis, email specifically every single time, or even text. As we now have text in the latest version of this, I can have it text people to say, here, go log in the system, you've got an invoice to approve there. So ways to let people know that there are documents sitting out there for them to have access to. And I mentioned earlier as well, we have those apps coming out by the end of the year. One of those apps is remote approval. So I'm going to show you right now the current version, the on-premise version, if you will. Do note that we'll also have an app for this by the end of the year as well, that you can come in and do this remote approval from wherever you want to be on your tablet device as well. But today, you can come in here, and what we try to do is for approval, we give your project managers or the supervisors, your owner, whoever it is that's doing this approval, again, it's all based on your route, a single point of entry into their invoices that they need to approve. So I only have one invoice in my queue right now to approve, but it happens to be a purchase order invoice. And from this screen, I can do a lot of things, and I can see a lot of things. And I can, first thing is, I got the invoice here in front of me. And if I need to put stamps on it, I've already had a couple stamps on there, let's put some new ones. I might put an approved stamp that automatically drops my name and the date and time that I threw that down. That's an option for me to put in for a particular stamp. I could create custom stamps with, like, say, signatures on it, so you can get your signature put on there. And all this information is now stored and saved on the document as something that you can print out, or you can print out the document and not include any of those annotations. But it's nice to be able to put those in, put redactions, put annotations on, just like we showed earlier with the drawing log that you can do there on the project management side. But storing all that piece on, but also letting me see all the notes and everything that's gone on beforehand. So it's as a project manager or as somebody who needs to approve this, I need to know everything about it. So when I say I'm approving it, I know that I'm legitimately doing the work I need to. So from here, being able to look through all the notes, see all the compliance warnings that have been waived, but also very importantly, looking at a purchase order line, I could see all the commitment information right from here. I don't have to start digging in. I don't have to go back into Sage 300 or 100 to go look at the commitment. I don't have to go look at everything. Instead, I click a button and it's going to show me the original commitment plus change orders, what's been pending and approved, what's been invoiced to date, payments that have come in already, all the different information right here at my fingertips, so I can make sure that this is an appropriate approval or it's not. And if it is or not, we have all those buttons right here to say approve, reject, put it on hold. Our put it on hold gives us the option to approve and put on hold for the next guy, or just put on hold for ourselves. We can reroute it to anyone else. So think of this scenario where it comes to you, but you need, it's a special circumstance and you need to have somebody else look at it too. Well, we can hit route and this will send that document over to anyone else we need to add. So if I wanted to send to one of my, my boss, say, hey, please review this, I can do that, send over the lines. I can either do them as an extra step or remove myself as the reviewer and keep myself going too. Lastly, because these documents that we showed earlier are all being stored in the system. Again, we can put purchase orders in here, lien waivers, credit card receipts, anything can be stored in the system. It's a full document repository. Well, everything's coded in and collated too, to where if I click a button on this documents button right here, I'm going to be able, as a approver, to see every document that's related to this invoice quickly and easily. So I stored in a lien waiver earlier. Here's the lien waiver. I can pull in, of course, see the invoice, which is on the screen there. I can pull up my purchase order to see my PO that was associated with this. I can see my receiving ticket. I can do all the annotations on these as well, but this gives me a single source of information. A single click gives me all related documents that I would need to be able to appropriately approve this invoice and, go ahead and do so. Move it on. Now also note that you might be asking, well, what if we have people that get invoices sent over to them, but then they go on vacation or they get sick and they're not able to be, taking care of their stuff? Well, we can handle that. We have the ability to give proxy rights to certain people for other people to get their work done. So let's say Dustin is on vacation. I can go in and say, get access to his inbox and pull up all of his pending invoices. Again, it's all security permitting, so note that you doesn't just give everybody access. You choose who to get to these access. And I could say, hey, I'm trying to get some of this stuff done. Dustin's got some invoices here from back in February or March, and I should probably take care of those. Now, right away, a couple things on here. I'm looking at the invoice. I could see all the different statuses of it. And maybe I can look down here and the cost code category is wrong. So I can pull up here and say, this invoice was a base contract. I'm just going to have to fudge some numbers here, but I'm going to say none of these are the right cost codes, or maybe they are. It was site and equipment. I can pick that. But if I find that the missing cost code here is not available, I do have the ability, security permitting, to actually access all my cost codes and say, well, this is actually structural framework, and it'll actually create the cost code and push it back into my Sage back office product. So I don't have to worry about creating every single cost code in job cost or in the budget screen. I can come over here and create them right on the fly, add them into the system, and then move on and approve that invoice. Now, once I hit approve, it's giving me one last notice that this is out of compliance. I'm just going to go ahead and say that's okay. If this was over budget or over a commitment, it would also give you all that information too. So all the different information here, I can go through and approve each invoice. And I'm approving these for Dustin in this case. Do note that the system is marking down not only that Dustin approved it, but that I approved it for him. So it does let you know who should have approved it and then who actually did approve it. There's no loss of information there on those approvals. You'll always be sure that you know exactly who did what and who should have done what. And we want to be able to track this. So as I said, this is a invoice tracking and approval system. So we give you lots of different ways to do that. We have a bunch of reports in the system, and these are crystal reports that can be modified if you need to make changes to them. Although I'll say right out of the box, many of these reports are pretty useful. I got outstanding invoices by job or by vendor, or unapproved invoices by reviewer, where I can run this, and please ignore how long these documents are in the system. As I said, it's demo data. In real life, yours will never be as bad as mine. But I can see a quick list of all of my different reviewers, all my different people who are going to be approving these documents. How many documents do they have total? How many dollars are sitting out there? And how long have they been sitting in their queues? So I have 2 documents, $29,000, sitting in my queue right now that are over 120 days old. That's terrible. But this, is one of those reports you can run and say maybe have each of these be 3 days, and you're getting things done quicker and quicker. You can lower them down, and you can also drill into this and see more information. All the information's here. I can go to the document, I can jump in, but this gives me a quick report I can run and have available to follow up on all my people and make sure their documents are getting taken care of. We want to have better relationships with our vendors or subcontractors. We want to be able to pay them faster, maybe to get discount dates and save 10%. That could be huge. If you're getting stuff saved 5-10% on every single project, on every single invoice, that's huge in the end of the day. So want to make sure you're getting things done faster. We have reports to do that, and we also have this Invoice Manager tool, which can pull up and look at all the different statuses of your invoices. Show me everything rejected, pending. And from here, sort it by dollar amount, sort it by invoice date, by due date, by discount date. If we have discounts, they'll show up here, and I can say, oh, this A1 electric, that should be taken care of, and let me see the details of it. So I can see, this has been approved by Dustin and Mike, but it's still waiting on me to approve this invoice. And this is probably my purchase order that I like to save for certain reasons, but nope, this actually is a job line. I can look at the details here from the screen. And let's say I'm not Vincent, which I am. Let's say I'm not, and I want to say, he's just not going to be available to do this. I trust Mike and Dustin that they've appropriately approved this already. In fact, I'm looking at it, I don't see anything out of whack. I'm going to go ahead and hit approve. I can force approve this as a project manager, or sorry, as a supervisor, or somebody with that permission granted to me. And of course, give me all the compliance stuff, and moves it on. So I can get things moved on, approved, keep going down the line, make sure that we're getting those discount dates, those due dates, and not falling into traps where people don't get paid. As things get fully approved, they show up in my approved screen. Your last chance to make sure everything's exactly how you want them. When they are, you just go ahead and find those particular invoices, highlight the groups, you hit export, and send those right back into your Sage back office product, either 100 or 300, so you can start actually doing your work and know that every invoice that you're looking at in your accounting has been fully approved. They're all there, allowed to have been vetted by everybody, and you don't have to worry so much about voiding things out and recreating it, because again, there should be all these catches done way at the beginning of the project. Now, once they're all in the system and you're going to cut your checks out, you're going to want to be able to basically go back, and if we're going with a completely digital system, how are you going to get all those documents that are related to those AP invoices to view and be able to sign the checks appropriately? Well, we give you a check review screen. Now, this is a supplement for the fact that many people on a non-paperless system, when you're dealing with actual paper or everything, when you have a check run that you got to go, you get a stack of checks in your hands, and you have to have somebody sign it. Well, typically in the past, you have to go in to your filing cabinet and find the invoice and find the subcontract and the change orders and the lien waivers and the POs and everything, and make photocopies of them, staple them to each check, and hand them over to somebody to sign, and they have to thumb through it all. We wanted to make that digital too. I mean, all these documents are already being stored in the system. Let's just make it pop up, and we did that. So what we'll do is you put in your check range of the checks that you just printed out, you hand it over to the person who's signing it, and they just type in the check range, and here it is. That check, it's to Kingston Plumbing, it's date, it's pulling the information right out of the accounting system. That check paid this invoice or multiple invoices. That invoice has tied to it these documents. In fact, I've already scanned in the check. This check's already been put in here as well, but I can see the invoice, I can see the subcontract, I can see this was reviewed by Jim and by Vincent, and it had all these notes, and right from here I can make sure everything's exactly how I want it to be, sign it, move on to the next check, and do the same thing. A1 Electric Company, it has 2 invoices in this case. Each invoice has so many documents. Looks like we had some lien waivers that went through it, approved by my reviewer Jim. I can then sign it off. This is a great way to make sure that everything is good before you sign those checks and send them off, because we're just collating, getting all that information for you without you having to go and do all that extra legwork on your side of things. Now, with that, we've got the documents stored in, they're scanned in, they're available to have us, pull them up as necessary. We showed earlier that you can, find all those documents just by bringing up the invoice and going through a paperclip icon in Sage 100 or Sage 300. And we're storing in all documents as well. We're not limited to AP invoices and the related documents. We can store in your drawing logs, your submittals, your purchase orders. Everything is available, saved in the system for this to be a truly paperless, environment. You can go ahead and turn your entire filing cabinet into a place to store everything. And we keep everything set up in such a way to where you can completely track all the documents' longevity and who has access. So we talked, mostly about the day-to-day work that the system will have, but for all you people out there who are admins or supervisors or even IT, note that we allow you to lock down this stuff how you want it to. I can set up security access to allow everybody to only access the things they should have. I can also set and tell documents how long do I want to store them in the system. Specifically say, I cannot remove it out of the system for X number of months or years. So think of any documents that you might have, for the payroll related stuff. You'll want to store those in the system, but you might say, well, what if we need to get it in 10 years? So you can tell the system, do not allow anyone to log in and delete this for up to 10 years. It's stored in there, and you can't delete it, you can't purge it. We can also set up what we call production and archive servers as well. Think of the idea that you might have documents that if I'm doing a search, I want them to show up real quickly because they're relevant to me, but I don't want to look at a job. Maybe this is a multi-year job. I don't want to have to see stuff from 3 years ago every time I do a search for it. You can set it up and have each type of document have a certain production longevity, and they will show up in the production search immediately. And after that time, they start moving into an archive. And this archive could actually be on another server to save you space on your main server if you want. And then those become archive. And then if I want to see everything, I just click all. We have quick ways to make sure things are moving along, getting them stored in, and quickly retrievable throughout the system there. So with that in mind, kind of went through all the different documents, our queues, our pieces here. I want to kind of step back and see if there was any questions that had come out. I believe, Matt, you were tracking any questions that came in, or was there anything that came in, or would you like to maybe turn on the phones to see if anyone has any questions for me?
Sure. Matt, do have a, oh, I'm sorry, Vincent. Yeah, we do have a question here. It's first one we have is, what's the ETA on the apps you were talking about earlier?
Yeah. So we talked about a couple different apps. We have a series of 3 apps that are going to be coming out by the end of the year. There's 2 that are going to be coming out probably by the end of October, and those 2 are going to be the capture, we're going to call them E in front of everything. We're going to say eCapture. eCapture is the app that allows you to take pictures of invoices, receipts, signed purchase orders, things like that. And again, that's going to be in by the end of October app. There's also the app called eForms, which I actually didn't mention earlier. eForms is another app that is designed to allow you to create your own custom forms. Think of these as maybe daily field reports, safety reports, customer satisfaction. I'm kind of throwing out a lot of project management stuff there, but that's one of the major groups of people that have been asking for it. But it's a way to create any custom forms you want, track, how do I want to code them into the system, and it becomes like a questionnaire with even signature captures and things like that. And this is an app that'll let you do that out in the field, capture all that form information, hit a button, and it sends it back and saves it as a PDF document here in Sage Paperless Construction. That's going to be another by the end of October release that we have there. And I'm using end of October. The actual due date should hopefully be sooner than that, but that's just to be safe. The other one we have coming by the end of the year, and I'm going to say this one's definitely probably late December. That's going to be the remote approval document. So you can, anything that's been sent over for people for approval, be able to pull up and see the invoice and see the related documents and set up an approval. That'll be done by the end of the year as well.
Okay, fantastic. Did have another question. Let's see. Does Sage Paperless work better with Sage 100 or Sage 300?
Works the same. It's a module that was designed to work with both products. And so what I showed you guys all today is identical between the two. The only things that might be slightly different are the field names and things like that within the enter invoices and things like that. But it works fine with both modules. And in fact, if you want to see an example of some of that stuff I was just doing here, let's say I'm pulling up a particular invoice in Sage 100 Contractor. I can come over here and say, just like I did on the Sage 300 where I pulled up the paperclip icon and I saw some stuff on there, I can do the same thing here in Sage 100 Contractor, pull up the related documents on an invoice or on a purchase order or whatever, and it's going to show me the related documents, and I can select them, email them, print them off. So again, no real which one's better than the rest. They're the same.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, one more question we received. Could you just briefly explain the routing rule categories again?
Yeah. Let's actually go and bring them up. So I explained it to you, but visual is always fun too. So let's say I want to set up a routing rule. When you now a couple blank spots here because my data set does not have property management. So if you had property management, you'd see some properties and tenants and units. But I got the ability to route based on general ledger, by vendor, credit card number, if you want to store those in there. Some of these you'll notice have exclusive rule as well. Exclusive rule basically says if a certain vendor is put in, ignore all other rules and do this route. And that's to kind of take over the fact that you might have certain vendors that are, the owner doesn't want everyone else to see it no matter how it's coded. They want to go be the only person to approve it. Or you have or it's a very special vendor that requires, us to pay it way at lightning speed or anything like that. So we're going to have different routing rules made. So some vendors might just skip and go straight to certain rules. That's what you'll see on exclusive. But you can do it by job, sub-job, cost code category, of course cost code category, your department, equipment, dollar amount, what type of invoice it is. You can set up your routing rules and you set up who gets it, how many people for each of those rules. When do they get it? Do they get it at the same time? Do they get it sequentially? You customize it exactly how you want.
All right, fantastic. And that looks like all the questions we have at the moment.
All right. Well, in that case, I'll pass it back to you. If you have any closing stuff or anything you want to go on your side, I'll let you be that person.
All right, thanks so much, Vince. I do appreciate it. Yeah, so if you have any questions, I know this happens a lot during a webinar. You think of a question and not quite in the webinar, but afterwards, might be tomorrow. Not a problem. Please feel free to reach out to us. Our account manager at Mantralogix, Jane Stiegler, is only a phone call away at 866-320-8922, extension 247. And I do have that in the chat window currently. Also, we'll send out a a recording of the webinar to everybody that was here today with that contact information as well, in case you think of some questions afterwards. We're happy to help you out there. But Vince, I just want to thank you so much for your time today, and looks like we don't have any further questions, so we'll give you the rest of your day back. Thank you.